Hello, my name is Noe Vasquez, and this is my last project for LIBS 201. I'm going to talk about white privileges. In today's American society, each of us has an identity that shapes how we see ourselves and others. Not only do our social norms and cultural blueprints influence our experiences, they also set the course for how we view the world around us. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, privilege is a state as, quote, privilege is a special right, benefit, and immunity granted to attainable to only a specific person or group of people, end of quote. Example of privilege include getting an education, having the ability to visualize and vocalize, and the ability to travel or expand your experiences. According to the article, language and silence, making systems of privilege visible by Wellman and Davis. They describe how society complying with privilege, the wealthy are favored, and privilege emerge invisibly in many social classes. Peggy McIntosh in her article gave us a huge list of privilege that white people have over many other racial groups. So now let's talk about in the next slide. McIntosh began working through this issue first in herself through accountability and counting the ways in which she enjoyed unearned skin privilege. Possibly even more serious, she noted that she had been conditioned into oblivion of existence. Likely, many whites operate in such oblivion. McIntosh describes white privilege as vividly and powerfully as the idea of invisible waitlists, of a special provision and more. In other words, a white person in the United States has an invisible favored position, status, acceptance, and more. This quote is by Wellman and Davis. Quote, white Americans may attach the concepts of progression towards equality or being colorblind as a privilege. As a result, many Americans either might not be aware of or might avoid considering how simply being white offers a special status or experiences. End of quote. Wellman and Davis explain in their article how institutional power has the ability to decide who will have access to resources and the capacity to exercise control over others. They describe judgment as an opinion that is formed on insufficient grounds before facts are known. Wellman and Davis strongly believe that prejudices are learned and can be unlearned. Wellman and Davis describe four levels of oppression. Privilege operates on a personal, interpersonal, cultural, and institutional levels and gives advantages, favors, and benefits to members of dominant groups at the expense of members of target groups. Privilege is characteristically invisible to people who have it. People in the dominant group often believe that they have earned the privilege that they enjoy, or that everyone could have access to those privileges if they only work to earn it. In fact, privileges are unearned and they are granted to people in the dominant group whether they want those privileges or not. Oppression signifies an authority over another group, separate a particular group from the rest of the society. It is shown, quote, the term oppression encapsulates the fusion of institutional and systematic discrimination, person bias, bigotry, and social prejudice in a complex web of relationships and structures that are shaping most aspects of life in our society. End of quote. Young describes in her article that the systematic reproduction of structural oppression through the ways society defines groups. She argues that oppression is not always a case of one group oppressing another, but has now come to include the exercise of power by society over certain groups unintentionally. She uses 5 categories to describe oppression on any group, such as exploitation, marginalization, powerlessness, cultural imperialism and violence. There are many ways how people can be oppressed, but one of the most common right now is the excessive force and police violence. People of color are oppressing through police using racial profiling and excessive force. Yet, white people seem to have some privilege when interacting with police. Police violence against people of color is prevalent and can be experienced in many different forms. One of those cases is the racial profiling, which is practiced by police force in the US, according to Iris Myron in her article 5 Faces of Oppression, quote, catalogues a large number of incidents of racism, violence, and terror against black in the United States between 1980 and 1982. Dozens of incidents of severe beating, killing, rape of black by police officers on duty, in which the police involved were uncured of anything wrong. End of quote. Oppression is not just the result of unconscious choices by individuals, but it's also deeply embedded system in our society, such as economic, cultural, and political institutions. Unfortunately, it seems like Americans do not understand what oppression really means, which has led to the rise of movements such as Black Lives Matter and Antifa. Different groups of people can have their lives affected by a dominant group making assumptions based on their skin color, ethnicity stereotypes, or biases. Most recent cases of violence by police in 2018 are caused by racial profiling people of color and by the use of excessive force. One of the most recent cases of racial profiling by police is the case of Laquan McDonald, who was 17 years old at the time he was killed by police officer Jackson, who shot McDonald 16 times in 2014. As a white police officer, Bandley was convicted as second-degree murder, when in any other case he might have been convicted of first-degree murder. Even though this conviction is a big victory against police violence in America, it still shows that white privilege has led to certain forms of violence becoming justifiable. The struggle for basic civil rights still continues and will continue to be still far from a society that does not oppress people through the use of violence. Racial profiling and excessive force by police still result in the death of people of color. Through the efforts of activists, change is possible. The economic, cultural, and political institutions of our society endorse violence against people of color and minimize the unlawful actions of white people. Thank you very much for your time.